When people think of villains in Disney movies, names like Jafar, Scar, or Ursula come to mind. But there's one character who often gets unfairly lumped into that villain category, and that, my friends, is Lightning from 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure. And honestly, he doesn't deserve that label. In fact, he deserves so much better. Now, Lightning was introduced as Thunderbolt's sidekick in the fictional TV show. He appears brave, loyal, eager, and always ready to support Thunderbolt on their adventures. But from the very beginning, however, he's treated as second best. When that group of female fans outright reject him, telling him they're not interested in the sidekicks, you can clearly see the embarrassment and sadness on Lightning's face. And I think that wasn't just rude, it was downright disrespectful. This is a character who puts in the same amount of effort, risks his own life on these adventures, and yet gets zero recognition. Imagine how that would feel. It's no wonder he eventually snaps. What makes this even worse is that his own partner, Thunderbolt, shows very little appreciation for him. Thunderbolt is always basking in the spotlight, eats up all the attention, blah blah blah, and seems more concerned with fame than friendship. Lightning, in contrast, he just wants to be noticed. He wants to be seen as someone important, someone who matters. This eventually leads Lightning to come up with this idea that the show is planning to replace Thunderbolt with a younger, fresher star. So, yes, he does trick Thunderbolt into thinking he's about to be fired. And yes, Lightning later tries to take over the show, but this doesn't make him a villain. It makes him someone who's hurting and desperate to step out of a shadow that's been looming over him for far too long. It's especially confusing to me that the writers chose to introduce Lightning as a sort of secondary antagonist when they already had Cruella de Vil as the main villain. Cruella is such an iconic, terrifying, and frankly more than enough of a villain for one movie, so why did the creators feel the need to throw Lightning under the bus just to push a minor subplot that doesn't even pay off? It just feels unnecessary and worse, lazy. They had a complex character in Lightning with a clear emotional arc, but instead of exploring that, they slapped the villain label on him and tossed him aside. There's no official explanation from the writers or directors either, and trust me, I've done my research. One possible reason, though, studios sometimes add extra characters is to sell merchandise, but obviously in this case that theory doesn't even make sense. Lightning has absolutely no merchandise, no toys, t-shirts, plushies, anything. Just nothing. So if the goal was to make him a marketable character, the studio dropped the ball completely. Instead, they left us with a character who was misunderstood, mistreated, and then disregarded. Now, let's talk about the turning point of the movie when Lightning reveals his true intentions. So, yeah, Lightning is trying to take over Thunderbolt's role for good, but honestly, it doesn't come off as evil, it comes off as just sad. His so-called villain speech never felt very convincing to me while watching this as a child, because he's not a villain. He's just tired of being overlooked, tired of being mocked, and tired of just not being appreciated. And that's something a lot of people can relate to. What really shows Lightning's true character is the moment when Thunderbolt fakes his death. Lightning, believing his friend is gone, breaks down crying. Now, that is not the reaction of a cold-hearted villain. That is the reaction of someone who genuinely cared, despite everything. And yet, after showing that vulnerability, he's dragged away by the police dogs and most likely thrown into the pound. No redemption arc, no apology, no chance to grow. Just a rushed and unfair ending for a character who deserved so much more. Why couldn't the writers have allowed Lightning to reform? Why not give him a second chance like Disney has done with so many others? Like Meg, for instance, from Hercules, she started off on a rocky path but was given room to evolve. Lightning could have had a similar journey. He could have apologized, teamed up with Thunderbolt and Patch, and became part of the story's happy ending. But no, instead he's punished, forgotten, and written off. On a more personal note, I've always liked the sidekicks more than the main heroes. They're usually funnier, more relatable, and often do just as much, if not more, to help save the day. I mean, think about it. Would Aladdin have survived without Abu? Would Hercules have succeeded without Pegasus and Phil? Sidekicks matter. And Lightning mattered too. He wasn't just some background character, he had emotions, goals, and a reason for what he did. And the fact that the movie failed to acknowledge that is, in my opinion, a huge mistake. In the end, Lightning isn't a villain, he's just misunderstood. He was hurt, ignored, and treated like he didn't matter. And for a movie that's all about believing in yourself and standing out from the crowd, it's kind of ironic that it left Lightning in the dark. He could have been so much more, and he should have been so much more. So, the next time you watch Patch's London Adventure, pay attention to Lightning, watch his expressions and his reactions. You'll see a character who just wanted to be loved, noticed, and appreciated. And maybe you'll agree with me when I say Lightning deserves better. Now, this is just my opinion on the character of Lightning. Comment below if you agree with me and share your thoughts on Lightning or any information you might have about him. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.